Senator Udall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you,
Yes, sir.
Secretary Pompeo, for being here, and thank you for your service. You mentioned in terms of other questions that it was still the policy of the United States to prevent missile proliferation in the Middle East. And I wanted to ask, based on what was said earlier in articles that have been put in the record about the Chinese selling missiles to Saudi Arabia, have you spoken up and told Saudi Arabia we don't appreciate their aggressive acquisition of Chinese missiles?
There are, I shouldn't say every, there are very few conversations that I have with the leadership in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that I don't make clear that we prefer they purchase American systems, and not Chinese systems across a broader way, whether it's telecommunications or otherwise.
Yeah, and are we seeing what many of our foreign policy folks that have been in the region a long time very worried about an arms race? Is this indication of the Chinese penetration into Saudi Arabia and missile sales? Is this an indication we're headed down the road to an arms race? And what are we doing about it if it's our policy to prevent this kind of thing?
So, Senator, it's a good question. I think it's a little more complicated than that. Look, the Middle East has had arms and arms issues for an awfully long time. This particular set of issues surrounding missiles, you see issues in the region with, we haven't talked about Turkey and their S-400 purchase. So missile defense, anti-aircraft systems. This is certainly something that we all need to keep an eye on. I will tell you that most of the folks who are working to build out missile systems are doing so directly because the Islamic Republic of Iran was permitted to continue its missile program under the JCPOA. It didn't slow them down. And so others are doing what they need to do to create a deterrence tool for themselves. It's just a fact.
Yeah, well, I very much hope that the administration will push back in terms of what's happening in missiles across the Middle East. Secretary Pompeo, our southern border increasingly looks like a war zone, like Germany with the Berlin Wall or the DMZ on the Korean Peninsula. We have Border Patrol agents harassing and separating families and caging children, members of the military supporting a made-up emergency, when the reality is that the U.S. border communities are just as safe and often safer than anywhere else in the United States. This is reminiscent of how we enemies treat one another. Is Mexico the enemy of the United States?
There were 20,000 apprehensions last week of illegal entrants into our country. This is a real crisis. These are numbers that I think when we took office, the numbers were, I'll have the numbers wrong, but 20,000 last week. We're working closely with the Mexican government to create the conditions there which will stop this. I work very closely with Foreign Minister Ebrard. He's been a great partner, but they have not yet effectively been able to stop what is mostly transit through their country from these folks coming into our country, and President Trump's determined to create sovereignty and protect our border.
Do you believe that the U.S. should close the southern border in response to the asylum seekers you just spoke about?
You know, with the laws as we have them today, I worked on an agreement where we would allow those with proper asylum claims to wait for their asylum hearing. The numbers are overwhelming to wait in Mexico. We had a court fundamentally misread the law and deny us the ability to do that. We need your help. We need Congress to change these rules. We know that some of the folks who come across have legitimate asylum claims, but the system is broken, and we need Congress to change the laws so that we can protect our southern borders. It's not just people who are coming here. It's drugs, it's weapons. The stories, you know them, about human trafficking that's taking place, or what's happening to women as they move across Mexico is truly tragic. If we can secure our southern border, we will improve the lives of those people. I'm convinced of it.
Do you believe our country is, quote, full, as the president has said, and that we should not accept any more asylum seekers or immigrants to the United States?
This is the most generous nation in the history of civilization. just the case. As the president
Well,
has said,
you could
as the president said
answer my
repeatedly,
question.
the president has said repeatedly, he's talked about lawful immigration. The work that we're doing is along our southern border to prevent people from coming in here unlawfully, illegally. That's the mission set that he's set out. It's what I'm working with the Northern Triangle countries and Mexico as a foreign policy matter to take care of.
Well, the reality is, and I think a lot of policy experts on the Northern Triangle are saying it's a very bad policy to cut off foreign aid to the 3 countries down there where these folks are originating from, and that's one of our levers to keep them there and to keep the countries more stable. But I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman.
You are.
Let me apologize and thank you for the courtesies, and I will yield back.